Something is shifting in the Big Easy, and it feels heavy. For years we knew who to trust when the game was on the line, but now there is this growing shadow over the Superdome. It is a tension we haven't felt in a decade. If you are a real Saints fan, someone who bleeds black and gold, you need to hear this, because the future of this franchise is hanging in the balance right now. Hit that like button and subscribe if you are a member of the Saints faithful. We need to talk about our identity and change. The silence coming out of the front office lately is starting to get loud. For the longest time, Alvin Kamara was the heartbeat of this offense. He was the one guy who could make something out of nothing. But after the worst statistical season of his career in 2025, where he couldn't even break the 1,000-yard mark for the first time ever, things started to feel different. He gained just 471 yards on the ground and caught only 33 passes. For a guy who used to dominate every blade of grass, those numbers were a shock to the system. Then the Saints went out and signed Travis Etienne to a massive $48 million deal. That wasn't just a depth move. That was a statement. And while Alvin is being a total pro about it, recently speaking on Taron Armstead's podcast about how he's cool with the direction and excited to have another weapon, you can't help but read between the lines. He mentioned how one person can't do it alone, and he's ready for that Mark Ingram-style partnership again. He even said he was happy for Etienne because the guy got paid. But here is the thing. Is that actually what the coaching staff is thinking? Because this past weekend, head coach Kellen Moore was asked point blank about Alvin's future during rookie minicamp, and his answer was anything but a ringing endorsement. Moore kept talking about evaluating the roster as a whole. He kept focusing on the young guys and building for the future. Even when he was pressed specifically on whether they were looking at a future without Kamara, he stayed non-committal. He said they love Alvin, but he kept circling back to the process of roster acquisition. It feels like the ground is shifting beneath our feet. We are talking about a guy who belongs on the Mount Rushmore of this franchise. A legend who has given everything to the fleur-de-lis, and suddenly the language coming from the top sounds corporate and cold. It makes you wonder if the team is already looking past this season. The reality is that the cap hit stays the same, but the long-term vision is getting very blurry. When you pay a guy like Etienne that kind of money, you aren't paying for a backup, you are paying for results. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet or yards on a field. This is about the soul of the New Orleans Saints. When you lose a player who has defined your culture for nearly a decade, it leaves a vacuum that isn't easily filled. The risk here is massive. If the Saints are truly moving toward a future centered around Travis Etienne, they are betting that a 30-year-old Kamara has lost his burst. But what if he hasn't? What if 2025 was just a product of a struggling offensive line or a system that didn't fit? By being non-committal, Kellen Moore is creating an environment of uncertainty that could ripple through the entire locker room. Veterans see how legends are treated. They notice when a coach starts talking about evaluation instead of commitment. There is a psychological weight to this that can't be ignored. If Alvin feels like the team is already looking for his replacement, does that spark a fire or does it create a rift? We saw how much he valued that relationship with Mark Ingram, and he's trying to manifest that same energy with Etienne, but the front office might have a completely different script. The pressure on the coaching staff now is immense. If they phase out a fan favorite and the run game doesn't instantly improve, the backlash will be legendary. We are talking about a guy who is the bridge to our most successful era. Seeing him in another jersey or even just seeing him relegated to a secondary role feels like a betrayal of the history we've built. And let's talk about the roster impact. If Etienne is the featured back, the entire pacing of this offense changes. He's a different kind of runner, a different kind of threat. But can he replicate the receiving versatility that made Alvin a nightmare for defensive coordinators? The uncertainty is what's killing the fans right now. We want to believe in the future. We want to believe that Kellen Moore has a master plan to get us back to the Super Bowl. But seeing a pillar of the community being talked about as just another piece of the roster evaluation is a tough pill to swallow. It feels like the front office is preparing us for a goodbye that nobody is actually ready for. This change feels like a storm brewing over the entire city. But this is where things really change for the Saints. This isn't just a standard roster battle. This is a philosophical shift. If New Orleans is moving on from the Kamara era, they are essentially closing the book on the old guard. And that's the biggest question facing this team right now. Are we rebuilding or are we reloading? Because if we are reloading, you keep a weapon like Alvin and find a way to make it work. But if the evaluation more is talking about leads to a reduced role or an eventual exit, it signals a total teardown of the identity we've known. This could become something much bigger than just a running back controversy. It's about the trust between the fans and the leadership. We've seen other teams try to move on from their stars too early, and it often results in years of mediocrity. The emotional escalation here is real. Every time Moore steps to the podium and refuses to say Alvin is our guy, the tension grows. And think about the message it sends to the rest of the league. If a legend like Kamara is on the block or being phased out, every contender is going to be circling like vultures. Imagine seeing Alvin in a jersey like the Cowboys or the Eagles. It's a nightmare scenario for anyone who bleeds black and gold. But the reality is that the NFL is a business, and the Saints are facing a brutal cap situation in the coming years. They might feel like they have no choice but to get younger and cheaper at the position. But at what cost? You can't replace the leadership he brings to the huddle. You can't replace the way he carries himself in the community. The future of the franchise is being decided in these quiet rooms during minicamp. Every rep ETN takes is a rep that used to belong to a legend. And while Alvin says he's cool with it, how long does that last if the touches start to dwindle? This is a powder keg. One bad game, one controversial comment, and this situation could explode. We are watching a slow-motion transition, and it's one of the most uncomfortable things we've had to endure as a fan base. The stakes couldn't be higher because if they get this wrong, it's not just a season that is truly lost. I'm going to be honest with you guys, this actually worries me more than I want to admit. I really like the Travis Etienne move from a talent perspective. You need depth in this league, and having 2 home run hitters in the backfield sounds like a dream. But the way this is being handled by the coaching staff feels off. I think fans should pay attention to the specific words Kellen Moore is using. He isn't talking like a coach who is trying to maximize a superstar. He's talking like a guy who is trying to figure out how to transition away from one. I want to be optimistic. I want to believe that we can have a dual-threat backfield that mirrors the glory days. But those days worked because the roles were clear and the respect was mutual. Right now, it feels like the team is hedging their bets. It's hard not to feel a little bit of heartbreak here. Alvin Kamara has been the one constant through all the ups and downs of the post-Breeze era. Seeing his worst season in 2025 was tough, but we all know the talent is still there. If the Saints give up on him now, I think it's a mistake that will haunt us. This move could be incredible if Moore finds a way to use both of them to devastate defenses. But if it's just a way to push Alvin out the door, then we have a problem. The locker room knows. The players know. They see the writing on the wall. As a fan, you want to trust the process, but the process feels cold right now. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Etienne and Kamara become the best duo in the league and lead us back to a deep playoff run. But there is a nagging feeling in my gut that we are being prepared for a breakup. It's that feeling of seeing your favorite player slowly become a roster element instead of a franchise cornerstone. We need to watch these preseason games very closely. The usage rates will tell us everything we need to know. Is this a partnership or is this a replacement? The answer to that question will define the Kellen Moore era in New Orleans. And honestly, I'm not sure I'm ready for the answer. I just do not think that I am ready yet today. The story is far from over, but the atmosphere in New Orleans has definitely changed. We are standing at a crossroads, watching a legend like Alvin Kamara face an uncertain future while a new star in Travis Etienne waits in the wings. Kellen Moore's words have left us with more questions than answers, and that's a dangerous place for a fan base to be. This isn't just about football. It's about the respect we show to the players who have defined our culture. Something bigger is definitely coming. Whether it's a shocking trade, a reduced role, or a late career resurgence that silences the critics, the next few months are going to be some of the most pivotal in recent Saints history. We have to stay tuned, but more importantly, we have to stay vocal. We cannot let this transition happen without making our voices heard. What do you think is really happening behind the scenes? Do you think Kellen Moore is making the right call by being non-committal? Or is this a slap in the face to a Saints legend? Is it time to move on to the ETN era? Or does Kamara have one more elite season left in the tank? I want to hear from the real fans in the comments below. Let's have a real conversation about the future of this team. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you bleed black and gold. We are in this together. Who Dat forever and always fans.